What's up, guys? Jason Payne, the host of the Sexy Business Status Podcast. I am here with one of my friends, who is also a neighbor, who is also a client, who's also a power partner. You're a lot of things to us.
That's awesome.
Janine, you say Igliane?
Igliane.
Nailed it. Okay.
Sound like Italian, right? But it's not. But yeah.
Hey, where's it from?
Well, my husband's Filipino, so it's from the Philippines, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, he's not white. He's not black. He's that.
Yeah, he looks
that,
Mexican. Yeah.
Did he speak any Spanish?
Oh no, and it's funny because I speak better Spanish than he does. So we go to restaurants or when we're in Mexico and I'll full on order and he'll try and they like expect him to.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
They're all,
right?
and you're like, hey, white blonde over here. Hey.
I always like, he's the whitest Mexican, right?
That's hilarious. That's so funny. Cool. So Janine.
Yes.
How long have you lived in Power Ranch?
So we moved in 06 from California. We're originally from Orange County.
Oh, cool.
Moved in 06, built a house in Power Ranch, lived there. In the market crash of 08, my husband got laid off and we were like, what do we do? I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. So we moved back to California. We kept our house here and rented it out. Moved back to California, lived there for a couple years, and I just missed Arizona because when we moved here, one by one, our whole family moved. So we moved back, and my husband was commuting at the time. So he was working in California, commuting. I had my son, so I had 3 little kids at home. It was a hard time, but looking back, it was one of the hardest times of my life. But that created this grit and gave me like a huge why. And that was actually how I got into real estate. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds heavy, but that's where you push through. And
for sure.
That's crazy. So, yeah, married, 3 kiddos.
3 kiddos, married for 20 years, 3 kiddos. My oldest is 18. She's going off to college. Then I have my 15-year-old. She's a sophomore in high school. And then my son is 11 and he's in 5th grade.
Awesome. So I obviously in the State 48 roofing game, those that are listening, one of our target markets is agents, right? And we won't get into the whole story of how we met and all that stuff, but there's a list that comes out every year, even every month in certain magazines of the top 300 agents in the Valley. And you're always up there, right? Top 25, then top 10, just kind of hanging out in there and doing your jam. And so what I didn't realize, and I didn't bring it up, and you didn't bring it up, somebody else brought it up to me when I saw one of your signs once upon a time, because I'd lived in Power Ranch for 10 years in 4 different houses, rented 2 houses, bought a house, and then bought the current house we're currently in. And so everywhere from I think it was like 12 or 1,400 square foot starter home to the awesome basement, section there. But as we're doing that, one, we bought a home from you guys, right? But I forgot who said it, but somebody in Power Ranch like, oh yeah, the home selling team, like Janine and Randy, like they do, it was either 40 or 60% of all transactions in Power Ranch.
Yeah, it's been really cool. So it's been 10 years that I've been doing it. And we've consistently been number 1 in there ever since then. And I'm super proud of that. I live there, so I love that. And that's what we coach our agents on, is really going so deep where you live. It just makes it even better, as you know, right?
Yeah.
Doing business where you live.
It's kind of funny that you say that. So my business partner, Nick, lives in San Diego, but he teaches this perfectly. He actually owned a company called Go Sold Realty. He sold 2,500 homes while he was here. He hasn't been doing it for probably 4 or 5 years now. But when he was doing real estate, he had an office on Elmo School in Ocotillo. So he's doing Southeast Valley. And he said one of his biggest mistakes is his ego got the best of him. He's like, oh, we're here. He's like, let's go to the west side. So opened up a branch on the west side. And he's working, 18-hour days, drinking monsters all day long, just like neglecting his health, his family, just going like crazy because he didn't go deep where he was. He tried to go wide.
Yep. I could talk about that all day long. I think with the way that what we do, the way that, we call it like our one thing is geographic farming. So we're all about our neighborhoods. We're all about giving back, really serving those communities that we work in. And for us, a big focus this year, just with the market shift, is, to your point, not going wide, but going deeper. How do we go deeper where we are? Not only is it making those relationships more solid, it just is a better way to do business, and then let it naturally grow from there. I think so many people try to spread themselves too thin and do all of these things amazing. How about you do this thing awesome and you kill it and you become number 1? And once you've mastered, then you can move on.
I absolutely love that, because you also, so for example, I have a buddy that actually worked for me 2 different times. One was I was at my uncle's company and then at State 48, and now he's working for another roofing company. And close your mouth or turn it off if there's kids, but we call him the roofing whore because that's what he does. And so he'll work for a company for he's been doing it for probably a decade now.
Yep.
But and I mean agents, it's 10 times worse.
Oh, I was going to say, we have that in the agent world,
Yeah.
right? Where agents switch brokerages all the time looking at the
Like
next
toilet
best
paper.
thing. I was talking to an agent, and if he listens to this will be funny because he'll know I'm talking about him. But I had lunch with him recently, and he's like, I'm switching to this brokerage. And he's like, because I can build a downline and do all of that. He's like, but I hate mentoring agents. And I'm like, do you hear yourself? I said it to him. I'm like, so you're going to a brokerage where that's how you're planning to make additional money
Right.
is by mentoring agents, but yet you just said you hate it.
Yeah, you
Like,
don't
why are
like
you
babysitting.
doing that?
It's crazy. It's crazy that you say that. So the credibility, not necessarily the loyalty, but the credibility of even if you stay in the same space, because you have people that jump around like my sister's current husband hops around like crazy, and they know this. We don't talk. It's totally fine. But I mean, every 6 months or every year, 18 months, he gets, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I'm like, dude, I would never like trust you with anything because
Right.
you're gonna like. I can't. I don't know if you're
Right.
gonna be there again,
Right.
right? But like,
Totally.
it's awesome. Like, I know that
Yeah.
if I ever need to buy or sell a house or any of our clients,
Yes.
I was like, dude, Janine's there.
Yep.
She lives there.
Yep.
She's always gonna be
Yep.
there. And I've given you referrals even before we bought a house from
Yeah.
you because I was like, you're everywhere
Yeah.
in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with my buddy that's a roofer, same thing. He hops all over the place, and you can say, I've been in the roofing industry for 10 years. But yeah, but you worked at 4 or 5 or 6 different roofing companies in those 10 years.
Yeah.
Huge red flag.
Right. Totally. Totally.
Or like I was at my uncle's company for 9 years, right? And went from making $14 an hour to 6 figures and being the GM to where I literally just wanted to buy in with him, and he said no, and I had to leave and start my
Yeah.
own.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with leaving, right? But jumping around, you have to really look at yourself. Like, what are you looking for that you're hoping these different brokerages offer? One of the things that's been super cool, having done it for 10 years now, is in doing it in the same neighborhood and living in that same neighborhood is building these long relationships with clients where I've been able to serve them multiple times over the years. And I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday. There's a client, for example, I'm thinking of where sold them a house. I met her through the PTO at Centennial Elementary, sold their house, helped them buy a house. Now I've helped her parents. I've helped his parents. And our kids, both of our oldest daughters just graduated. And so it's like, we're almost walking this life together,
Right.
and I love that. And that's what I want is to be, we say this all the time. We want to be your realtor for life, right? For us, it's not just about a one-time transaction. We want to be amazing so that you are just so happy with us that you want to keep telling others about us, refer us out. And so for us, it's truly the sale or the buy process, but it's the relationship too.
Right. So I hear this, right? Working with agents, I hear, I don't know if it's true or not. So myth or truth, the average homeowner moves every 7 years.
Yes. And actually, it's looking like that number's pushing closer to 10 now because people with their interest rates, with home values as they are, typically the market is cyclical, right? It's constantly going up and down. All of our clients sign what we call a market conditions advisory, which just states that the market is cyclical. We can't guarantee future value, right? We saw that with COVID. We have, when COVID happened, so in March and April of 2020, I had 14 cancellations within that month's time frame. People got laid off, people freaked out, backed out. It was crazy, right? They were just like, oh my gosh, the market's going to crash. What's going to happen? And then what happened? Like a month or two later, it was like, and then it just kept skyrocketing. We had people that sold that were like, okay, I'm going to sell. The market's high. You can't time the market. You have to do what's best for you and your family. And I was just talking to someone else the other day and he's like, how's business, Janine? And I'm like, it's great. I'm doing great. I know the market is slow overall, but I'm staying busy. People always need to move, right? There's always life events, upsize, downsize, relocate, whatever,
death,
divorce, unfortunately,
yeah.
So there's always going to be those changes. It's just working with an agent that can advise you during those difficult times and how to take best advantage of the current market you're in. So for example, in this market, with rates being higher than what we've seen in the last few years, getting a seller credit is super important to help buy down your rate. That's significant, right? And so being able to negotiate that into the offer, negotiating the best price on the house, and then as a listing agent, pricing that home right so that it sells for the top dollar. So having an experienced agent is going to make all the difference in any market. And that's what's hard. Sorry, Jason.
No, you're good.
When you go to the past market where it was like anybody, I would say this to my clients, like my daughter, my 15-year-old could sell your home for you in this market, right? Where
during COVID.
The market that we came out of, right? Where you put it in MLS, put the sign in the yard, and it's already sold. And so we saw a ton of agents enter the market that were brand new, friends, relatives, and it watered down our market so much. And we have this overabundance of realtors. So I'm super excited because the market that we're in now, people can't hack it. This is interesting.
Love it.
Statistic.
I love that.
Most, your average realtor will only sell 3.8 houses. So less than 4 houses this year. That's crazy.
That's one a quarter.
That's one a quarter. And that's like a major, I mean, would you trust somebody to put a new roof on your house that's only done it 4 times? And
once every 90 days.
Right?
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 I was talking to one of my other buddies. He says he does 2 a week. And I'm like, I was like, oh, I do 10 to 15 a week, apart from repairs.
Totally. At the end of the day,
gosh.
the more you do it, the better you get at it. Right?
Totally.
And so super fortunate in this market, people go back to tried and true realtors. Like, who's the best? Who can I trust? Who knows what they're doing? I need someone experienced. And, fortunately for me, because of the way that we built our business, that business comes my way. I've had people that have their sister, their best friend, a realtor, and they come to me because of what we do in the community and just showing that like consistency and that reputation. One of my favorite things, and you even said it, is I see you everywhere. You're everywhere, Janine, right? We're not everywhere, but that's the perception. And I love that.
Yeah. We actually just had our first TV commercial yesterday.
I saw it.
We're super stoked. But that's so we'll get into marketing here in a second because I feel like you guys really have it dialed in, and you actually see it as an investment and an asset, not as a liability and like a unnecessary risk. So I want to go into marketing with you. It's funny that just as you were talking, the current stat right now is 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And I actually saw a guy
that's in the church and outside the church. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I could have sworn I saw social media or at an event or somewhere where literally like their hashtag was the divorce realtor. And I'm like, it's terrible, but it's like, it's a huge,
that's a market.
It's almost like the Trump and, Biden type thing. It's like people take advantage of that stuff. And there's, people made hundreds of millions of dollars and became famous because of a freaking election type deal or COVID. Like, and so it's crazy that it goes that route, but like, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, death. Like, you're going to die no matter what. Right. And it might be like just age, right? Or like that to go into assisted living, like huge opportunity right there. Yeah. There's an entire community of Canadians in the Knolls, right?
Yep.
And so you and I, we partner up a ton. We co-brand events, whether it's from and there's different tiers, guys. I want you to understand this, that when you go deep, not wide, you can go into those tiers. Some people say, oh, cool. Well, let's go, do flyers to this neighborhood once. It's like, you're not going to get any attraction. You might get a lead, but you're almost throwing, it's just not very effective.
100%. It's not. You have to be, sorry to cut you off, but you have to be consistent with it. And that's where realtors fail as well. They do it once and they say, well, no one called. Well, it's not about that. It's about the long game. It's about doing it consistently. Consistency compounds. So the more that you do it, the more it's like a snowball going down a hill. It gets bigger as it goes. And so you keep doing it, you will see it, but you got to stick with it. And most people don't. Most people quit right before that success. Yeah.
One of my favorite books, 3 Feet from Gold. Like that's literally what it is. And I feel like real estate, it's a quick, easy, $5, $10, $15,000 check, whatever that looks like to buy or sell that house. I love right now. So Kenny Klaus is on, Blake Clark's on, a bunch of the big, the guys that like true salesmen and craftsmen of their skill.
Yeah.
Like they really have developed and owned it because like you said, a ton of these people came in and I was just looking at the stat the other day. There's 900 roofing contractors in Arizona. In 2022, there was 110,000 in the country. Wow. There's only 90,000 this year.
Wow.
That means 20,000 roofing contractors went out of business in a year.
Yeah.
And same thing, I'm like, these guys come and go. Yeah. Restoration companies, solar guys, they just come and go like crazy.
Yep.
And real estate's one of them. And I'm like, but that's the thing is, it's not like pest control, you're screwing up like a $30 or $50 a month service. you're talking about
one of your biggest investments.
Like if not the biggest investment you'll ever do. And if you're only doing it every 7 years, every 10 years, and you only live 70 years, you're doing it less than a dozen times ever.
Totally.
Same with the roof.
Yeah.
The average homeowner replaces their roof once in their lifetime.
Wow.
So they either move like before they have to replace it, or get replaced right before they moved in, or it's a new build, or all those scenarios, or the renting. But the average person will cut a check for a new roof once in their lifetime.
So I will speak to that. Working with a true professional on the cross sale side in real estate, but also with our vendors makes all the difference. And that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on. We're super hands-on with our clients, and we don't recommend anybody that we can't vouch for that we wouldn't use ourselves.
Right.
And if there is an issue, because sometimes issues happen, right? Then it's just how do they own it? How do they respond to it? And how do they work through it?
Sure.
So that's one of the things that I can feel totally confident. And I've had to pull vendors because they haven't done right? Or they haven't owned their mistakes or whatever. And I'm all about like a second chance. You messed up, that's okay, it happens, right? How do you respond to it? But if that mistake keeps happening, I can't do that because I'm trusting you with my amazing client. And on the flip side, when I work with cross-sell agents on buying and selling, that agent will make all the difference in the process. I actually love doing dual agency where I represent both buyer and seller at the same time. Because I tell my clients there's no surprises, right? I know, and as long as both parties are reasonable, then this process is going to go really well. At the end of the day, it's always the client's decisions, and I'll always make my recommendations regardless of who I represent. But working with a professional on the flip side just makes that transaction so much better. I've done several cross sales with Blake, and every time they're awesome. And even when they're rough, like he canceled on one of us one time. Like it still was a great experience. So everybody's happy. It makes all the difference.
It's interesting because in roofing, there's not necessarily a cross sale, right? But it's interesting how you can be amazing at your job, but on the flip side, the other person, they could literally screw it up. They can mess it up if they don't have their ducks in a row. So you're kind of at the mercy of who you are going to cross-sell with, right? Oh, yeah. And if they're a rookie, if they're inexperienced, I mean, I'm sure there's horror stories you can go on forever.
Yes, I could.
So how do you prevent that from happening? Is it just like, it is what it, like,
I think,
what does that look like?
Right. That's what separates the really good agents from the average agents is knowing how to vet. When I talk to my sellers on an offer, we're going to look at all aspects, and all aspects is not just the purchase price of the home, right? Sometimes the highest price doesn't always win. We're going to look at terms. We're going to look at who's their lender. We're going to look at who's their agent. I had one where multiple offers came over on a house. Honestly, the highest offer came from an agent who I had absolutely a horrible experience with recently. And she was horrible to work with. And I shared that with my client. I said, here are the facts. This is my experience. I just recently did a cross sale with this agent. It was absolutely horrific. Here's why. And my client said, Janine, I trust you. Let's go with this offer. And it ended up going amazing, right? I love that too, that they trusted me enough. And at the end of the day, I'll always let them decide, but I am going to give them the good and the bad and the ugly.
Because when you're a true professional and you understand adding value, so one of our core values is add value and educate first. And when you do that, you're actually helping them. Hey, if you want these guys are $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000 higher, and they're like, well, we want the highest number. Everyone wants who doesn't want the highest number? Come on. But when you can educate them and say, hey, look, like because of this situation, this could actually be a royal shit show and be a total nightmare for that extra 10 or 13 grand, or like mentally commit to not have that 10 or 13 grand. And the next one or a second or third one, I know them, or they have a great reputation, or they're a great firm or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, cool. But that some people, it's literally it's all about the buck, especially when it comes to doing a roof.
Yeah.
Like, I always want the cheapest price. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, I tell this all the time, and I'm going to be famous for it one day. But all of so in the US and Canada, the past 25 years, 21 out of 25 years, the highest number of ROC complaints has been roofing. 21 out of 25. At one point in time, it was 17 years in a row.
Crazy.
And I'm like, that'd be a great stat for anything other than ROC complaints.
Right.
Like, you'd be a Hall of Famer, right? You'd be a multimillionaire. But that's what it comes down to. Like, there's roofing contractors, we are just really bad at business. And I'm glad I didn't come like my dad's dad and my grandpa, like swinging the hammer and all that stuff. I didn't come from that. I just like got randomly thrown in there. but that they're just so bad at business, and they don't know how to price a job right. They don't know how to stay profitable, so they go out of business, and that's why they're so cheap. They're like, oh, I'm so cheap. I'm like, dude, do you forget like the whole marketing expense? I tell people all the time, and even your clients are like, Jason is expensive, but the dude, he has a fully built out team that will deliver. Not like, it's kind of funny the stereotype, but like White Mountains, Sholo, Flagstaff, anywhere up there. A lot of the roofing contractors up there, the avid hunters, fishers, and whatnot. So when they draw like a elk tag, right, a deer tag, or javelina, they'll literally disappear for 2 weeks.
Totally.
So they're like, oh, I need to do your roof next week. Like, oh, well, that Wednesday is my deer tag. I'm gonna be gone for 2 weeks. Right. And they're like, you're supposed to be doing my house. What the crap? Yeah. So it's kind of so people will literally hire us to go up 3-4 hours one way to do that because of the lack of professionalism.
Oh, totally.
And so we have an opportunity, and I love in the real estate side right now because 2 years ago, like I said, everybody and their mom could have sold a freaking house, right? Your daughter could have gotten a real estate license in senior year in high school and literally could have sold 2 or 3 deals, not even trying. Yeah. And so, but I love now it's like all the studs are back.
Oh yeah,
they were always there. Yeah, but like I love you said, it got diluted.
Totally,
right?
It totally.
And so, how do you going forward? Now you have studs versus studs. Yeah. So what's I don't want to say pull out all your tricks and tell us. Yeah. But like, what is something that helps you separate yourself? We mentioned other names in here, other studs that also have their own little niche of how to separate themselves. What's something that you guys do in the home selling team? Yeah. Ryan, right? Yeah. Love Ryan. Just had lunch with them this week. What's something that you and your team members do to separate yourself from other agents? I have a buddy that literally lives in Power Ranch that I go to church with that I don't refer. Yeah. And no hard feelings. It's just not my jam. Yeah. But what do you guys do to separate yourself when you have just one, there's 80,000 of you or 60,000 of you or whatever. And 10% of you guys do like 90% of the deals. Yes, that's true. So how do you work through that?
Yeah. So we are geographic farmers, as I said. So we really specialize in our neighborhoods. We go deep, and we do it different than a lot of geographic farmers do when they think of farming a neighborhood. For us, it's not just marketing to that neighborhood, and I can talk about that, but it's really serving and giving back. That's how we live our personal life. And so for us, it only makes sense to run our business that way too, right? When I moved to Power Ranch from California, I didn't know anybody. And it was through the community events that I got to know my neighbors, and it made living there so much better. So when we got into business, one of the first big events that we did was our food drive. We do an annual food drive to benefit House of Refuge. And it was just born out of this idea of how do we get with our neighbors and do good and give back? Because we're so thankful that they've chosen us over and over and over for their real estate needs. And now that event is huge. It's House of Refuge's biggest food drive of the year. We collect enough food that carries them from November through the summer.
That's fantastic. When do you guys do it?
We do it in November.
Bro, let me know. We'll throw it down.
Do it. So just coming from that place of how do we serve, how do we give back? A big part of it is connecting with the elementary schools, and we just sit with them. In fact, we just had our meeting with the PTO, and we say, what do you guys need? It's about them, right? It's not about us. And I believe when you come from that place of making it about them, the business naturally comes. You don't even have to ask for it, right? You don't have to say, hey, who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate? I rarely ask that question. I'm just so focused on them that they naturally want to give back. It's kind of amazing. And I could go on and on about that. So for us, it's really serving our communities, giving back to our communities, and then heavily marketing to them, right? Showing them what we do, providing value, coming from a place of here's valuable information about what's going on in your neighborhood, whether or not you're thinking of selling. It's always interesting to know what our home value is doing, right? What is the highest priced home that just sold, or what's the lowest price one? Just super interesting, right? So for us, giving value, serving, giving back is huge. And then we just take that and we do it so well, and we just replicate it in our different neighborhoods. So
we talked about marketing. In my opinion, marketing is a marathon, especially a lot of the door hangers, those type of things. There's certain marketing aspects it's a quick dime to like just do a little spike, but that's never a long-term result, right? So what your mindset is similar to mine of like, I'm here for the long game. I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere. So if I don't see an ROI for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years, I have people that I did their roof, or I looked at an inspection form at my uncle's company like 8 years ago, but I left a good impression, and they found me on social media or or however, and they're like, hey, come to it. And now all of a sudden it's a $20,000-$30,000 roof. What mindset shift did you have from, I mean, I don't think any of us have that day one. You started been doing it for 10 years. Day one, I don't think we had any of that. One, we didn't have the money. Maybe you did, but I didn't. And I didn't have the mental mindset that David Goggins calls it the mental callus to be able to throw down, because it's expensive. It's 5 and 6 figures. It's a very heavy investment where you could be using it for a personal trip or just keeping it in a savings account or maybe putting it into a different investment. What does that mindset look like for you?
Yeah. So for us, it's like a non-negotiable. We're going to hit our farms on a minimum of once a month, and we're going to hit them with value. One of the things that's super important, especially in our world, is you get a flyer on your door or a mailer in the mail. It's junk mail. Let's be honest. And it's like 30 seconds from the time that they look at it before it's in the trash. I know that. So for us, we want our branding to be super consistent. So they see it and they're like, oh, there they are again. There they are again, right? They can see it across the room and just know, oh, that's Janine. That's the home selling team. That's State 48, because our branding is so consistent. So when you look at our marketing, it's super consistent. The message may change, but to be honest, the message doesn't have to. I could put the same thing up for a year and send it out to my farms every month and never change that message. People would have no clue because they don't pay that much attention, but it's about that branding.
Brand recognition.
For sure. So one of the things that we do, like with all of our listings, is we hit all the neighbors a minimum of 150. We just upped it from 100 to 150 with a coming soon, just listed, and just sold. And we're actually adding in now 5 touches. Just started that because we're really to that point going deeper, not wider. Anyway, so they're getting hit. Those neighbors are getting hit with that same house. They don't pay attention. They just think, oh my gosh, Janine's killing it. She's selling so many houses, right? No, we just hit you with the same house, just in different ways. Right. That marketing is super consistent and it's super important. I want our brand to be so recognizable. It's like a can of Coke or a can of Pepsi. You can see it from across the room and immediately know, oh, that's a Coke can. That's a Pepsi can. Right? Yeah,
like your houses and the red, white, and blue colors. Like I'm like, oh,
same.
Yeah, I was like, there's a need. Whether it's even a listing, a sign that's in the yard, and I'm talking like half a mile away because Power Ranch is huge. But like literally down the street, I'm like, oh, going by it. Most people, I love that you said there's consistency with it, right? That's how I am. I'm like, my colors don't change. And so when I had my old coaching business and had to dilute it and go back, I was like, well, what's going to be, what's going to look like? And I was like, literally it goes from sexy roof status to sexy business status because I already have that momentum and that brand recognition. And then the colors, I kept green. Why? Because there's nothing to be like, oh, well, let me put on this hat that's yellow or red or brown or black. It's like, and then go back to the roofing thing. I'm like, no, they're very aligned with each other from core values, ethics to obviously me owning both. But I love that you guys it's simple.
Yeah.
But it's the exposure.
Yes.
That's the part that I love. It's like obscurity, right?
For sure. And I think having done it now for so long and then having replicated it, right? Gone into new neighborhoods that we have never sold in and starting from the ground up and building that same business and doing it the exact same way, it works. It's a proven system that works.
Love it.
It's just a matter of doing the work and doing it consistently and not giving up. One of the things for us that's really important too, and I wanted to mention this earlier, is just partnering with the right people that have that same vision, like you call them power partners, that are totally dedicated to taking care of the clients at a high level. That's first and foremost for us is service.
Sure.
Communication is super important, but being able to partner with like-minded people is really, really helpful. And that's one of the things that we love about working with you guys is just that you have that same vision, that same service mindset, that same desire to give back. And again, just let the business naturally come back to you is super cool.
So I appreciate that, by the way. It's so when it comes to hiring in a roofing company or in a coaching company compared to hiring agents, the core foundation of hiring. A lot of people are terrified to hire. They don't want to hire. They're scared to hire. Obviously, you want to bring in agents. You're very specific on who you bring in.
Yes, very selective.
What's your hiring process look like? Because those that are listening to the podcast, most of them are small business owners, have anywhere from 0 to 10 employees, and do $2 to $3 million in revenue a year. And they're trying to grow, trying to scale. A lot of them get stuck, have capacity issues. Even as a business owner, you have capacity issues for your employees, so they leave. What do you do to attract quality talent and then keep it? Because sometimes you'll dangle a beautiful carrot, right? Whether it's whatever monetary or not.
Yeah.
And you'll dangle it and they'll come in and then 6 months or a year later, there's massive turnover. So what does it look like to attract a good agent and then keep that agent?
Yeah. So in terms of bringing somebody on, I think it's really important that it's the right fit first and foremost. Like I've hired out of desperation and it's never been a good thing, right? So hiring before it gets to that point is so important. And so many people are afraid to make some of those hiring decisions or make that first hire or put that person in or pay the salary or whatever. And anytime I've done it, it's always paid off, right? Taking that step of faith of like, okay, I'm going to pay them more than I was thinking, but they're worth it. It totally pays off. So in finding the right person, and for us, like personality profiles are really important. This is kind of a secret. Nobody knows this, but I like tell people no all the time and I make them pursue me to see like how bad do they really want.
It's funny you say that. So part of our hiring process, I got this stole from Grant Cardone. You have to send a 60 or a 90-second video of why you want to come work for him.
Yep.
That's the easiest barrier of like the bull crap.
Yes.
People that want to come in. Resume, I'm like, dude, you're in the blue collar contracting space. We didn't know what a resume. We don't know how to spell resume, let alone like send me a resume. I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
Like, hey, send me a 60 or 90-second video, whether it's from Facebook Messenger to Instagram to an actual text message. Like, send us a video that tapers out at least 80-90% of it.
Yeah.
And then from there, you sent me one. And then a guy that actually works for us, his name is Tommy. He's 21 years old. He sent us 11 videos, 11 60-second videos on his own because he's like, hey, I want this job. Hey, I want this job. And going over and over and over again. And I said, dude, I was like, Grant Cardone also teaches, as well as the bigwigs, that your average follow-up is 7 to 12 times before you close the deal.
Yes.
And industry, it's all different, whatnot. But even, crazy enough, even the LDS world, they talk about, baptizing people and having them join the church. They even have it down like to a science. It's like 13 or 14 touch points, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the principle or the bring it all back is Tommy, that's now our sales rep. I told my sales manager, Carlos, I said, dude, I was like, how many videos has he sent? He's like, dude, it's at least 7. And 7, once I hear 7, then I engage.
Right.
Like we're trying to do a deal.
Yep.
My sales guys have to go all the way to 7. If they don't do 7, they can't contact me. If they're at 3 or 4, dude, help me close this deal. I'm like, are you at 7? No, shut up, go away.
Yeah.
And I make it, they got to earn it. Totally. And he did that, and we tracked it later. It was actually 11, but he said 7. I was like, hire him.
Yep.
Simply because he understands the power of follow-up.
Totally.
He's literally selling us and following up with us.
Yes.
All you have to do is flip that and put Mrs. Smith there with the roof need.
Yep.
Like winner, chicken dinner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so it's interesting that you say that, how you tell, you're not scared to tell people no.
No. And I
love the desperation card too, by the way. That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
I mean, for me, it's just, I'm so intentional with who I put in my world. They have to be like-minded. They have to be on board and be totally sold out for our way of doing business, right? Because anybody who has a team knows that if you have one bad apple, it like is poison, right? And so my best way to avoid that is just by bringing in the right people that are going to build each other up. I love when my team members are friends and they're like super connected and they're cheering for each other. So for me, ignoring, and again, nobody knows this, but this is like totally one of my things is I will ignore you and see how much you pursue me, because that's going to tell me how bad do you really want it. This isn't easy.
To a level, you actually did that to me. True story. Yes or no?
It's true.
Right? I was like, after a while, I was like, hey, Janine, hey, let's do this. And it took a while, and Ryan said, one, she's very loyal.
Yes.
But she says she's a hard cookie to crack, or whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
But he said, stay consistent.
Yeah.
And and honestly, I love that though, because once again, people just give up too freaking easy.
They do.
They think like, oh, I'm just gonna like open up. I have people like, oh, can I set up a meeting with you? And I'm like, no. Right. I was like, I got crap to do. And
my
I'm like,
time is valuable.
Yeah. I was like, if you can sell me why I need to give you 30 minutes or an hour or whatever.
And really quick, just super random note on that. I get agents that reach out to me all the time. Janine, can I sit with you and pick your brain for 30 minutes? My biggest piece of advice, make it worth my time. Okay, my hourly rate is very high. What I get paid for when I work is very high.
Sure.
So if you want me to give you any of that time, I'm happy to do it and do it without anything in return. But it will help you if you make it worth my while. And some of the best times when I've had a one-on-one is where an agent has said, I just want to pick your brain. And then they say, hey, I have this, or this is what I do, or here's a book or something, right? To make it worthwhile. So just a side note, a little tip.
So
if you want one-on-one time with a top performer, make it worth their while.
Yeah. I know actually a real estate coach that he does that, and they're like, want to go to lunch? Cool, not a problem. And he'll send him an invoice before lunch for $500.
Right.
And he's like, what's this for? He's like, you want to go to lunch, right? It's like, I'm buying you lunch. Like, I don't need the $20 salad. I'm good. Right. Or I don't need the $20 steak or whatever. Right. Like, even if it's somewhere nice, like, bro, I'm good with salad and go. Like, totally. That's, you know, but it's like, but that hour I can get a lot done, or I can implement something or follow up or do whatever to make more money or to help or to grow. And the best thing about that is we talk about one of our core values is giver's gain, right? Or that's a B&I quote, but we give first without expecting anything in return. And so when you say, hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, can I do this? Hey, like, you're almost like, wham, wham. What I hear is wham, 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 or taker. Yeah. And I hate takers.
Yes.
I've been around takers for a long time, both blood and non-blood, from family members to parents to certain things. And I had to cut them off. And some of them would come back. They're like, hey, I'm sorry I was a taker. Yeah. And I'm like, because that's every time I talk to you, you want something, you need something, and you're never here to help. You're here just for me to give you insight and or professional advice, personal advice. I'm like, dude, it just gets old.
I think that applies to real estate. When I meet with a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller for the first time, it to me is all about them. That meeting is me sitting there, listening to them, finding out what do they need, what are their goals, what are they wanting to accomplish. Yeah, I can tell them how great we are, all that we can do, but it's meaningless if I don't know what they need or what they're looking for. And so sitting there and just making it all about them at the beginning is so helpful to build that relationship. Then I can speak specifically to what they need and how I can address that, or how I can solve that problem, or how I can help them. But too often realtors want to go to meetings and say how great they are, and regardless of the point, the client. And that's, I think, totally the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, because like justifying your ego of like, please do. It's almost like please go with me and don't go with them, instead of like, where are you trying to go? Right. Like, what does the next 6 months, 12 months look for you?
What are you trying to accomplish?
And that's why I appeal all the time, because I know I have roofing contractors that only do full roofs, and I'm like, what do they don't need a full roof? I'm like, you're literally doing them a disservice by giving them a full roof when they don't need it, and that's why we do repairs. We do that. We just did our 5,000 job like 2 weeks ago or a month ago, but like a ton of those are repairs and maintenance guys, because they don't need a full roof, right?
Well,
like,
and that extends the life of the roof, right? When you're doing those maintenance items over time. That's actually a really good question. How often would you say having somebody like just have their roof looked at is like, what's a good gauge?
So, and then
like for preventative purposes.
Yeah. I recommend no later than every 2 years. If not every year. One, they're courteous. They're free. So we'll come out and just do a once over, because you never know when that random woodpecker comes to hang out, or those bees, or you have that Christmas lights guy that shouldn't been on your roof that was on your roof. You'll be amazed how many people, from pest control to painting to stucco to the dish guy, right? Or all those people that get up on your roof, they do significant damage. They won't tell you. They don't disclose it. It's out of sight, out of mind. You won't see it ever. And it can cause literally thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. So I recommend once a year, because you're naturally going to have people up on your roof. And you're like, no one's been up there. And I'm like, they didn't tell you they're up there. But in order to do X or Y or Z, they had to touch it. So I recommend no later than every 2 years. If not, just once a year. Once we do like a maintenance or a service, or like you buy or sell a house. Hey, you bought your house in August of 2023 with Janine. Hey, in August 2024, we're going to hit you up. Come to your house for free. Hey, guess what? And the cool thing with us, different than HVAC and other guys, like, well, it's a $79 trip charge. Bro, if there's nothing there, it's a high five.
That's awesome.
Because one of our core values is be transformational, not transactional. And I'm like, we want you to not if, but when you need a roofing service, you don't need it now. Totally. Cool, brother, high five. Totally. Right? Come back when you need one. Yep. Like you can't. I would say there's nobody asks for a discount. There's most of the time they don't get other quotes, right? So the loyalty and the credit, like it's an easier sell that when they really need something, because you didn't BS them, you didn't sell something they didn't need. And I was telling my guys religiously, our entire team, especially my sales team, like, do not sell someone something that they do not need.
Love it.
Because if that's someone's mom, even if it's not, but like if that was my mom and you did that, like
Right.
I would not only never use you again, I would go intentionally try and destroy you or hurt your reputation because you did my mom wrong. And I'm like, take your, I would show people like, hey, take my sales hat off. This is what I would do.
Yeah.
This is my house. And I've done that with you via the phone.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Janine.
That's my question all the time. What would you do if it was your house? Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, based off the age, based off the condition, here's what I would do. And we, Frank Vargas talks about this. He owns 10X Stages with Grant. And he talks about how you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, that you're selling them what they need and not what they want. And it's just something that's always stood out to me. I'm like, tell them what they need, even if they don't want to put a new roof on or they don't have the funds. That doesn't change. It's not my fault.
Yeah, totally.
Right? It's like
it is what it is. Yeah, it's the same with real estate. You know, there's so many options out there. There are so many iBuyer companies that will want to come and buy your home. And my biggest thing, because I so care about my sellers and I see them get screwed over and over by these third-party iBuyer companies, by inexperienced agents that don't know what they're doing. And that translates into thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for that seller. And that can make a huge difference. Even if it's $5,000, I would want to get that money, right? I could go on a vacation with my husband, right?
Totally.
Like, so for me, if one of the things that I really encourage homeowners is if you're at all thinking about it, right? Even if you're like, in 2 years, I think I'm going to sell. Let's have a conversation and let me talk with you. Let me share with you what that looks like, what your options are, how you can prepare for that, and give you advice so that you can make an informed decision, right? I will tell people, and that's one of the things kind of like you, that I will be so honest with them. And I'll be like, you know what? That's a better opportunity. You should go with them. You should take advantage of that, or you shouldn't. One of the ways that I've bought most of my rental properties is because I'm telling my client, don't sell this, keep it and make it a rental and rent it out. And they have said to me, if it's such a great deal, then you buy it, Janine. And I'm like, done, I'll buy it. So I will always give that honest truth. And so just there's no pressure, but having the opportunity to sit down with somebody so that they can make an informed decision is so huge.
Yeah, it was Pete Vargas, not Frank Vargas, by the way. But it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of when we go to roof inspections, we always try, like I said, hey, you don't need anything right now, and the house is 18, 20 years old, whatever, but the roof isn't shot. We still will send, it's company protocol now, because some people will still bite the bullet and they'll do the roof. And there's a couple extra bucks, which is nice. But the main point is, if you know you need a $20,000 roof in 3 years, and I tell you right now, I at least told you on paper, like, hey, you need a $20,000 roof. You got 3 years. In 3 years, even if inflation goes up to 22 or 23,000, and it's easier to have that 20 grand ready to rock and roll. You don't have to make up that $3,000, whatever inflation, compared to you don't say anything. You say it's okay. You got 2 or 3 years left. Don't send them a number. People just don't know what it costs.
Yeah.
And it could be, is it 10 grand in different houses? I know 5,000 square foot houses where the roof's only $7,000 because it's a tri-level, so the roof's like tiny.
Right.
Compared to, like, I just did one the other day, was 1,400 square feet, but had a 3-car garage, had a huge patio addition, and a front porch, 2-foot overhangs. It was like 4,000 square feet of roof for a 1,400 square foot house. Yeah. It was like $20,000 roof. Yeah. And they're like, Jason, it's a 1,400 square foot starter. Right. You're full of crap. I'm like, so I literally show them the Google Earth or the map, measure them like this. And they're like, oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, because realtor, we think of 90% of the time, lot size, but especially square footage.
Right.
They think of, well, what is the square footage of the roof? Nobody cares except for a roofer, right?
Right.
But when you can educate them and say, hey, my dad teaches this. Tell me this since I was a little kiddo. Previous preparation prevents poor performance. Nice. The 5 Ps. And I always tell my team, like, hey, like, educate them and let them know. Yes. So not if, but when. And if they live there for 7 years, and you say there's 2 to 3 years left, what does that mean? They're more than likely going to be the homeowner still when they need extra Y or Z service, whether it's $2,000 or $20,000. So lastly, I do, and I'm not say the best for last.
Well, really quick before you move on from that, one of the things that is super important, I think, for in your world and my world, is people think, okay, if my roof needs repair, it's going to be crazy expensive, when really it could just be a small minor repair, right, to extend the life of the roof. Same thing with selling a house. I think my home is worth this, and this iBuyer company told me this, or this, super cheap brokerage told me this price. Come to me and let me tell you, because I've had it happen more often than not where the true value of their home is significantly higher than what those companies are telling them.
Really?
So let's have a conversation and find out and get a second opinion. People think they're saving money, but really they're giving up tons, right? Just because they don't know. So
Yeah, and they'll say the ad on a TV or a website or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I know 72 sold."
Yeah.
Have their little. Did a great job. I always look at it in like the marketing side.
Yeah.
I'm like, they did amazing, but I'm like, ugh.
I just had one where a client,
back end
she
of it.
thought her house was worth like $485. The iBuyer company came in and they said $485. So she was like, sweet, that's right in line. And her friend was like, talk to Janine. $550, I think it was. And that's what we ended up going under contract
Killer.
for.
65.
Significant, right?
So last but not least, you're a mom,
Yes.
a lady,
Yes.
and a business owner,
Yes.
and a wife.
Yes.
That's a big pill to swallow.
Yeah.
How do you do it all?
It's a lot, but I love it. So I'm super driven by my passion for my real estate business, passion for being a mom, passion for being a wife. As a Christian woman, right, I fully believe in serving God, honoring my husband, taking care of my kids, and running an amazing business, right? I want my business to just be awesome. So
In that order.
For sure.
In that order. I think we get that twisted.
Right?
No, I think most of us get that way twisted on several different levels, but go ahead.
So for me, and we were just talking about this yesterday. I'm and I've had to learn the hard way, if I'm honest, like again, 10 years in business and I've done it all. There was a point in my life where I was giving up sleep to work more. I literally said, I can sleep less and I can work more. I ended up getting shingles, and I think I was like 38 at the time. And because I was so stressed, right? I was just really trying to work and just do way too much. And it like ruined me. So I've learned to really be time sensitive. So time block, my calendar is like my Bible. I am faithful to it. And so one of the things that I've done is when I'm working, I am crushing it. I am all in. So my clients are getting the best of me. Like I am super intentional with my time. I'm not wasting time. I'm not, lollygagging or checking social media. Like I am working, I'm making my calls, I'm meeting my people, and I'm doing it all in a short amount of time. If anyone's heard of Tim Ferriss and the 4-Hour Work Week, I love his theory or idea that, right before we go on vacation, we're super productive, right? We get all this done because we're on this time crunch. I kind of live my life that way, right? Where when I'm working, I'm all in and I'm super productive because in my mind, I got to get all this stuff done so that I can go be a mom and show up for them. My kids play sports. They're busy with their activities. My husband's a firefighter, so he's gone on shift 24 hours at a time. And so I don't want to miss any of that. And I've learned the hard way because I have missed some of those things. So I'm very intentional about my time. Again, just talking about this yesterday. I think that the idea of balance between work and family is not necessarily attainable. It's very hard to find.
Crap.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was taught, and I totally live by this, that you think of it like a pendulum that swings back and forth, right? Here's work and here's family. And that pendulum is swinging. And sometimes you're with your family and you're focused, and then sometimes it's on work. The goal is to minimize those swings, right? So that you're swinging slightly. You're not doing these big swings where you're working crazy hours and totally neglecting your family. And on the flip side, you're not hanging out at home with your family and neglecting your business, right? So
Sure.
Minimizing those swings is what I live for. And so, yeah, sometimes it swings over to work where I'm working more than I am with my family, but I'm super intentional to make time for them and make up for that, right? So that it balances out or gets as close to balance as possible. So
Right.
I'm really faithful to my calendar, really faithful to time blocking. And when I'm working, I'm all about my work and my clients are getting all of me.
So I love that you brought that up. So coaching small business owners, we all deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jason, how are you, a family guy, a church guy, you have your own personal hobbies. you're married, you have 5 kids, like you have not one, but 2 businesses, like, how do you do it? Like, it just sounds exhausting. And I'm like, honestly, it is exhausting, but it's fun exhausting because it's something I'm passionate about.
Yes.
And something that I developed about a year ago that's been huge for me, mostly because my wife pointed out, she's like, we're not gonna be married much longer if you don't get your shit together. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so like date night, like when you're at date night, like go all in, take your watch out. I literally have to take, like I have control issues, and I love, like, if my watch is on and beeping, I'm gonna look at it.
Yep.
So going date night, I literally have to put my phone down like this, right, and put my watch down, or literally leave in the car. And I'm like, even if I wanted to look at social media or look at my phone or work or email or text or ESPN for that matter, right, something fun, like I literally can't, right. And so it gives me the opportunity to really connect on a deeper level with my wife.
Yep.
See, with the kids, it's not about, well, I work for something like, well, you work 8 hours a day, but you don't spend 8 hours a day with your kids. I'm like, that's not what it's about. Like, it's not quantity, it's quality.
For sure.
But what happens is that we let the work go into our family. So my thing is, when I'm 5 to 8 o'clock is family time. You'll very, very seldomly catch me taking calls, responding to emails, getting up on a roof, doing a business audit, something like that between 5 and 8. It is the exception by far, not the rule. And the reason why is because my kids want me for like an hour. But that 1 hour of quality, like you said, where you time blocking, that 1 hour being intentional, being present and not being distracted is really like 8 hours to them.
I think it's so rude to be on your phone when you're with other people, right? What does it say to them? Like, my phone is more important. And what are we communicating to our kids? I have a sign in my garage that my lender gave me that says, give them the best of me, not the rest of me. And so it gives me a second to pause before I go into my home. So I'm famous for sitting in my driveway, finishing up a phone call, finishing up a text.
I texted you last week.
Yes, before I go in, because I don't want to be trying to mesh that. I want them to have me and have my full attention. Another thing that I do that's been amazing is I integrate my family into my business. So my husband works and he'll deliver flyers for us. Any community event, any event that we do for clients, my family's there. They're working it, they're serving it, they're enjoying it, right? And that makes it so much richer when you can kind of blend those two, if you're able to. And then also they get to see mom work, right? They get to see me talking to people, and I hope that they're kind of learning, right? What do they say? It's caught, not taught, right? And
caught, not taught, all day.
I love that.
All day. Alrighty, guys. Janine Igliane, the home selling team, dominates in the Southeast Valley. Power Ranch, shameless plug, because we both live in Power Ranch. So if you ever need to buy or sell a home in Power, anywhere in the Southeast Valley, but especially in Power Ranch, where can they go to? What's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you and your team? Yeah,
so I am always available. So you can call me directly on my cell phone, 480-298-0910. But you can go to our website. You can follow us on social media. Everything's under the Home Selling Team AZ.
Awesome.
Thank you,
cool.
Jason.
Janine, thank you so much. This is the Sexy Business Status Podcast, where we don't just talk about business, we talk about life, wife, being a mom, all those things combined. Janine, you killed it. Thank you so much.
Let's go.